Hello, and welcome to the sixth module of this course. Now that we've covered the basics, let's look at one of the last tools we'll use to create our templates. We will also learn about the different ways we can collect and export our projects. So let's get started. Creating responsive design compositions. Now that we know how to work with assets and compositions, we can talk about another tool, the responsive design tool. This tool allows us to set markers that will create protected regions for our compositions. If we increase or decrease the length of our comps in the timeline, the animation in these regions inside the markers is preserved. In this example that I have on screen, I can increase or decrease the length of my comp, and the parts marked as intro and outro will not change in size. I can double the length and my intro and outro will still play at the same speed. Now the best thing about this option is that if I drag the comp from my project panel, you'll see it shows the intro and outro on the timeline, and I can choose the length with no issues. This tool is really handy when creating template galleries for transitions, icons, and other types of animations that might have an intro and outro. So let's learn how we can set the responsive design up. I'll start by opening this icon animation that I created. Here I have a 1-second animation where the icon animates in, and then another second animation where the icon animates out. There are two ways of adding responsive parameters to a comp. The first one is by adding two markers to the timeline. You can add markers by clicking and dragging the marker icon on the right-hand side and letting go where you want to place it. The second way is by moving the current time indicator to a certain position in the timeline and clicking once over the marker icon. Remember, markers can be moved by clicking and dragging them after they've been placed on the timeline. I'll add the first marker and I'll move it to the beginning of the comp. Then I'll double-click on it to bring up the settings for the marker. In this new window, you'll see that I have the time that represents the starting time where the marker is set. In this case, it's set to 0, as the marker was placed at the beginning of my comp. Then we have duration. This tells my marker how much time it will cover in the timeline. As the icon animates in over a second, and the project is set to 25 frames per second, I'll change the duration to 25, or I can add it as 1 second. Remember, in After Effects, time is represented from right to left in frames, followed by seconds, then minutes, and hours. If you type 50 in the frame range, After Effects will automatically convert it to 2 seconds. Next, we have a common field. This is text that will show up on the timeline as a marker. I'll name this marker Intro. The labels also allow us to change the color of the markers. For this example, I'll choose orange. Finally, we have our Response and Design Time option that has a checkbox that says Protected Region. This is the magic checkbox that will allow us to create our responsive design comps. If I click OK and go back into my composition, you'll see the marker now has these two handles, and we have an orange section that goes over my timeline, indicating the second I set as my marker parameter. You can change the length of the marker area by clicking and dragging the right handle. To move it around, you can click and drag the left handle. Now let's go to the end of the comp and add the marker for the outro. But this time I'll do it by going into Composition and Responsive Design Time. We have three options available in this menu: Create Intro, Create Outro, and Create Protected Region from Work Area. We need to add Create Outro. Now, as you can see, After Effects has automatically created a marker at the end of the composition. But it was created with After Effects default values, so it doesn't match our 1-second animation. We can easily fix this by double-clicking on the first or last handle and changing the values of the settings window for the marker that pops up. Now that we have both markers and the animation, we can just drag and drop the icon from the project panel into a new composition, and you'll notice we have the 2 marker regions I created and their names on my icon comp. Added to this, I also have my protected regions for the icon. This means that I can control the transformation of the strokes, colors, and the length of my icon directly on the nested composition. You can use this for scenes and transitions that have an intro and an outro animation. This will enable you to adjust the composition length in case you need to amend the timing based on the script or voiceover changes. Now, one thing we need to consider is that responsive design works best for compositions that only have animation at the beginning and at the end. Because as you can see with my scene animation, if I double the length of my composition in the timeline, you'll notice everything is running at half the speed. This is because only the animation inside the marker is protected from being time remapped. It shouldn't be too noticeable if you increase or decrease the length by a few frames. Remember to always keep what is happening in your composition in mind when you scale its duration. Conclusion. After Effects has been implementing more and more options that allow us to streamline our workflow. These options enable us to easily create templates and galleries for long-term and team projects. In the past, you could achieve similar results by using expressions, but that was something that not everyone was able to implement easily in their projects.